Thanks again, everyone, for joining us for today's Cintoo webinar. As a reminder, this webinar will be recorded for future use. If you have any questions, please type them in the Q&A panel and we will answer them at the end of the demonstration. So let's talk about today's agenda. Basically today we're going to talk about QAQC workflows for the AEC world. I will review what the workflow looks like, show you the alignment and comparison tools, and also how to create issues and reports. After that, we're going to turn it over to Myles Martin, who's a principal at M3 Design Group, and he will discuss how they use the QAQC process inside of Cintoo to complete their projects ahead of time and ahead of schedule. After that, we will turn it over to Dominic Poliquin, who is the CEO of Cintoo US. He will talk about feature enhancements that have been introduced to the product in the last month or so. So let's talk about quality assurance and quality control. Quality assurance is the process-based system that ensures quality requirements for a project or service will be fulfilled. Quality control, on the other hand, ensures that the quality of a project or service will comply with the requirements. So, in a nutshell, quality control is a component of quality assurance. To help illustrate this, here's a simple chart that kind of explains the differences. In the plan stage, you're really establishing the process necessary to deliver results that meet the project requirements. For the do stage, let's think of that as executing the plan. For the check stage, think of that as comparing the as-built against the as-designed to ascertain the differences between the two. And finally, the act stage. This is where you take corrective action to address the differences and feed this back into the plan. You analyze the differences to determine root cause and make adjustments to the plan or the process if necessary. That way you can negate bottlenecks in the future. Next, let's talk about our QAQC workflow using Cintoo. First, we will go out into the field and capture and register our laser scan information. Once we have this information, we can then upload those structured RCPs, E57s, or FLS files into Cintoo Connect. Cintoo Connect will automatically take the point cloud data and transform that into a 3D mesh, which can then be viewed inside of Cintoo Cloud. Keep in mind that we can connect to model data as well. So we can bring in IFC data from your desktop or local network, as well as connect to BIM 360 and bring in Revit drawings, Navisworks drawings, or 3D DWGs as well. Once this data is all inside of Cintoo Cloud, we can then run a scan to BIM comparison and create issues. These issues can be pushed out in two different ways. The first is to export out as a BCF format, which will help feed our issue tracking processes using softwares such as BIMTrack, Revisto, or BIMCollab. And we also have the ability to export out an intelligent PDF that we can publish out to others on the project team. So now I would like to show these workflows in product. So what I'm going to do is go to my a model I have here. So I'm going to zoom into this, and I've already pre-located an area where I know there's a known issue, but let's go ahead and just kind of walk through the process. So in order to do this, we will turn on our comparison tool. And what I want to compare is all the scans to all the models. And I also want to make sure that I am in surface mode. So now we can have the opportunity to click on the visual difference tool. So what you see here is from where I'm sitting at this scan location, everything in red is out of tolerance, everything in green is within tolerance. And over here I can adjust my tolerance levels. So, everything within 1/10 of a foot, everything that's outside of that is going to be shown as red. Another option we have is to actually click on our visual check tool. Once again, I'm going to make sure that I am in surface mode. And now what I can do is slide this over to the left, and this is all of my scan data. So everything that's been picked up by the scanner. As I slide it over to the right, this is my BIM model. So this is just a second verification that, yes, there is something out of place here. Once again, to verify that again, we can go back to our visual difference tool just to pick that up. So from this point, I think we're good. So what we can do from here is create an issue. So I'm going to go to my annotations tab. I am going to add another annotation, so I'm going to put it on this wall. So it's going to capture that 3D location. I'm going to make this an issue. So we have an option between issues, private notes, and notes. Uh, Notes are for the whole project team to see. Private notes are just something that I can see. But as I said, I want to create an issue, and you'll notice the layout changes a little bit. So I'm going to change this, give it a name. So I want to say add to BIM model. I'm going to give it a severity level. So this is, in my opinion, very critical. Let's go ahead and give it a due date. I'm going to make it due on March 27th. In this area, I can add all kinds of information. So I can put in text, or I could also add information such as hyperlinks. I can put in pictures, PDF documents, whatever. It's pretty open, so we can put that kind of information in there. The last thing I need to do is assign to someone. So I'm going to go ahead and assign this to Dominic, and it's going to validate it. So that's going to make sure that he's actually in my project as a member. Once that has been done, I'm going to go ahead and create this annotation. So now you'll see up here at the top, add to BIM model. I do have the option to edit it, so I could go back and make any changes as I wanted to. So we've created an issue. So what's the next step? So the next thing we can do is go to reports. So if I go over to the reports tab, I can then, a couple different things I can do here. So I can go through and sort by, click on the users I want to see the report on, and also what activities. So right now everything is toggled on, but if I want to just see issues, I have one issue, which is the one that I just created. So now I have two other options. I can export as a PDF. So let's go ahead and do that. My PDF has been generated. So here is that in PDF format. It gives me all the information, when it was created, all that good stuff, XYZ information. But what's really nice about this is a live link. So when I go click on this, it will actually take me to this exact location in the model. And if I'm Dominic or whoever it was assigned to, they can actually resolve it. They can add a new comment to it, and that gets put into the chain. Okay, the other option is to go back into reports, and I can export this as a BCF file. Let me go ahead and just make sure I'm just taking out the issues. Export it as a BCF. So down here, you'll see this is a sales comparison. But what I'd like to do now is actually bring this information into Revit or Navisworks. And I did forget to say, as a last thing that we should look at is, that's great we have these issues identified and it's going to show us in the model, but we also need to bring over possibly a mesh data or a recap or RCP or RCS file to show the point cloud inside of the product. So let's go back to our 3D view, and I'll show you how to create a crop very quickly. So let's just go back into this area. So here is that wall area. What I want to do now is create a crop of this area. I've already created a crop, but I can go ahead and create a new one. So let's go ahead and open the crop tool. I want to get into my 3D navigation mode. Just kind of gives me more freedom to move around and make sure I'm cropping the area that I want. So this here is that area. So typically all I got to do is just make sure I get this around here. Let's go ahead and just move the axes around. So there's that. This is actually like a stairwell, so let's get that. Let's move it out there as well. And what's nice is I can actually fine tune it by clicking in these lower areas. So if you see, I'll click down here and I can actually just use my wheel to do that. Let's go ahead and just go down to there. Once again, use my wheel to go up to the level I need to, and do here. And I'm going to say add, so I can give it a crop name. So this is crop 3. I can once again go edit this, name it whatever I'd like to. I'm going to go back into crop 2 just in an effort to save time, but I would like to, this is that same area. A couple different ways you can export this data. so I can export it. When I click export, it will open up Cintoo Connect and ask me how I would like to download this data, this point cloud data. So that's one way we can do it. Another way we can do this is actually export it and create a mesh. So here's a Cintoo Connect that just opened up. I'm going to go ahead and cancel, but you can see you can export out as an E50 or unified RCS or an unstructured RCP. Both of these formats are readily acceptable by all Autodesk products. Let's go ahead and close that. The other thing is, I said we could bring this out as a unified mesh, so we could give it a name. We can change the resolution. So as we move the slider to the left, the resolution will become much more dense, which also increases the size of the data file. So you want to be careful on this, because the farther you go to the left, like I said, the larger the data file. You can have some of these, if it's a large area you're doing, it could be in the gigabytes, which would actually kill any of your products that you may be trying to bring it into. So be cognizant of that, be realistic on what you're trying to really achieve. Also, we have the option to select our different formats. Autodesk, of course, takes FBX, and the imagery is attached to it as well. But all I would do is hit create. Once I would do that, I'm not actually going to use this one, but once I create it, you get this message that says that your mesh is being processed up in the cloud, and you will get an email when it's ready and available for download. So now let's jump over to Revit, and let's go through how we bring in that point cloud data, as well as look at those BCFs that we just created. So I want to bring in a point cloud, so that one I just exported out. Here is the scan data that I created. So I'm going to go ahead and add this. So it should now be in my file. So if I go to my BCF, I'm using a free application called BIM Collab. Allows me to bring in BCF information. But here is that BCF file that I just created. I'm going to double click on it. It's now in there. That shows that issue. All I need to do from here is just double click on this. It's just looking for a viewport, but we're just going to use the camera view. And there is that point cloud, and this is the same location as you see in the thumbnail, which was taken from Cintoo Cloud. So very powerful, brings you right to the place where you need to look at to investigate if you need to make changes or not. The same thing also holds true in Navisworks. So in Navisworks, we are going to open up the same tool we used before, this BIM Collab. I'm going to go ahead and open up this manager. It's just telling me that it's open in Revit. Once again, I'm going to upload this same BCF file. One thing I also want to do is go back to my home page, and I want to add or append, and I want to bring in, okay, so here let's bring in first, I want to bring in, let's say, the mesh. So that mesh we created was an FBX. So we're going to bring that in, and we're also going to bring in the point cloud just to show how both of these work. So I'm going to add an Autodesk RCP. That's actually up in my scan data. Okay, so now I have all these things inserted. So I have the Revit file, which is the building. I've also brought in the FBX that we created as a mesh, as well as the RCS. So I'm now going to double click on this. Once again, it's just looking for a viewport. And here is that same area. Just to show the kind of the differences, we can hide the mesh. So there's just my point cloud. If I go and hide the point cloud, here's what it looks like. Now let's just turn on the mesh. So that's it in a nutshell. Pretty simple workflow. It's really great that we can round trip this information between applications. Like I said, we can create the issue inside of Cintoo, export that information out as a BCF file or as a PDF. We can crop that area. We can then export that out as a mesh or as a recap file, which can be brought into Navisworks or Revit or even AutoCAD to do your finished detail work to make sure everything is in accordance with what you have planned. So now I'd like to turn this over to my good friend Myles Martin over at M3 Design Group to discuss how he uses Cintoo for his QA/QC processes.
Hello, my name is Myles Martin. I am an architect here in New Orleans, Louisiana. I am with M3 Design Group. We focus on the use of technology in the design and construction process. I'm here today to talk to you about point clouds and the QAQC process. Before we get into what the QAQC process is involved with, we want to talk a little bit about what point clouds can do for you. Point clouds, the advantages of using point clouds is to document as-built conditions, to then extract accurate measurements in all dimensions, to provide virtual walkthroughs, to get geometric analysis, and also data for converting into building information models. As you can see in this slide, there's a real-world photo from a case study that we've done. There's a laser scan of that structure to which we created a highly detailed 3D BIM Revit model. How did we confirm that that BIM created model was highly accurate? Well, we use Cintoo. Why do we use Cintoo for our QA/QC process? First off, it's a unique product in the market. It allows you to visually compare the BIM model against the point cloud model. It accepts many file types between Revit, IFC, and the popular BCF, which is in the BIM coordination format, which allows you to extend its use through your software stack. Cintoo is a cloud-based program, which is great when you're dealing with big point cloud, heavy point clouds and large Revit models, and that you're not reliant upon your local PC horsepower. The built-in issue tracking feature is super strong in that you can assign responsibilities to teammates and track whether an item has been open or closed. And also because it is web-based and very visual in its use, it's extremely easy to use, and you can be off and running with the program within 5 to 10 minutes. So for our QAQC, there's a diagram showing our case study workflow. First, we start off with that laser scan point cloud information. We take that scan data, we import it into Revit, and we also import it into Cintoo. Once inside of Revit and we start our initial model off that point cloud information, we then export our Revit model directly into Cintoo. Now that we're in Cintoo and we have our Revit model and our point cloud, we can start our analysis of how accurate our modeling is against the point cloud. Once we've moved through the point cloud and we've identified our issues where our level of accuracy is off, we found missing elements, we flag those items inside the 3D model. And by flagging those items inside the 3D model, we are geolocating the pinpoint of where that item is occurring. And when we're dropping that issue in the model inside of Cintoo, it's giving you that geolocation. It's allowing you to assign responsibility to a person. It's giving you a snapshot visual of where that issue occurs. It's giving you the opportunity to write a description, to add a photo or an annotation. From there, when that issue is created, you can export that whole issue into a PDF issues report. You can also export those issues into that BCF format. When you export those into that BCF format, you then can load those back into your Revit model. By loading that BCF issues file back into your Revit model, it then allows you to click on issue by issue to your 3D view inside of Revit will zoom into that location where the issue has been found and allows you to make that pickup, and then you can mark that issue closed out. So what you have is a circle here of quality assurance and checking. Once you might run through this once, you might need to run through times. At the end though, you'll have a model that's squeaky clean. Once that model is squeaky clean, you've now confirmed through your QAQC process that you have a 100% accurate model. So here's a few workflow screenshots where you can see visually how that process is working. On the left, we're using our Cintoo web browser, and we're inside the comparison tool. Inside that comparison tool, you can see that we've selected our two colors with green and red. Green being information that was modeled with inside of the tolerance. That tolerance you can set accordingly to your project specific parameters, whether it's a 1/4 inch intolerance or whether it's 6 inches within tolerance. In this example right here, you can see there's a sink that's colored red. That red is indicating that that's an item out of tolerance, an item that hasn't been modeled. So if it hasn't been modeled, we'll click on that item, we'll assign it an issue and a responsibility and give a description. And then on the right-hand side of that screenshot, you can see that the issues are tracking as we're building out. Fast forward, I've exported that issue list from my BCF file. I've installed inside of Revit a free BCF viewer. There's a few of them out on the market. And now when I have that BCF file loaded, you can see that the navigation and the menu system is set up pretty similar to Cintoo, where my issues are colorized on the right in my thumbnail views. I can click on each one of those issues and it'll take me exactly to that spot in the model where that issue occurred to make my update and mark it as complete. So in summary, by using the cloud-based tool Cintoo in your software stack, teams can confirm accurate Scan to BIM modeling with confidence. Thanks for your time.
Wow, so thanks, Myles, for this very interesting testimonial, and thanks for using Cintoo Cloud on a daily basis with your team. My name is Dominic Poliquin, in charge of business development and product management, and I'll show you a few new stuff that we introduced lately into the product. So the first thing I'd like to show you is a new shared viewer option. So let's go into a project like this one. The best way to share is, of course, to invite team members. They will need to log in to the platform with their password, but there is another way to share. As you know, you can use the share button here, and then you can share through a URL that you can embed into a WebGL page, or you can send by email, etc. So what we added here is that we have the option now to select which scan on which orientation, on which display setting you will be using to create your shared viewer experience. So let me use this one, for example, here. Let's say this is the scan I want to use as a starting point for my shared viewer experience, and this is orientation of it. And then I create this shared viewer. I generate a URL that you can see here, which I can edit, copy, or even have as a QR code. But let me copy this in another Google Chrome window here, and you will see the shared viewer now will exactly start from these settings that I selected. Okay, and of course, so we added 2D panel here is our shared viewer. Of course, you can switch to 3D RGB, 3D surface, and then you can also navigate in the 3D space. So all kind of cool stuff. But the 2D panel will be the default view in most cases. So let me give you another example. So for example, here, I select this order scan as the starting point. I select this as a viewing angle, and I select 3D surface as a starting display setting. So when I generate the URL now, I go to generate URL, I copy this one in another window, and then you will see that the shared viewer experience will start from these exact settings. You can also share with, each scan come with his own sharing as well, with his own URL. In this case, the default setting will be the 2D panoramic image. And we added the same default viewing, which is a 2D panoramic view, 2D panoramic mode in the tablet viewer as well. So I don't know if you know that, but we have a very nice tablet viewer that works on Android, on iOS, tablets and smartphones that have a simplified UI. Like you can select those projects, the data view, and go to the 3D view. Where you can, so as I said, you start in the scan mode in the 2D panoramic image as a default view. But then you can switch to using the display settings. You can switch to RGB mode or surface mode, or the same, also navigate in 3D space and see your BIM model, something like that. So please take a look at that and use it on your own smartphones or tablets. Another interesting piece of information is we changed our business model for the visual analysis tools. So you need to unlock those tools to for everything Scan on BIM, like connecting to BIM 360 and pulling your Revit or Navisworks model, aligning Scan on BIM, comparing Scan on BIM, comparing two sets of scans, or creating issue and exporting them in BCF, which is a BIM collaboration format. So what we had before is that you needed to unlock those visual analysis tools using daily tokens or monthly subscriptions on a project per project basis. So for each project, you needed to have the right tokens on subscriptions. Now we made it much, much simpler. Now you can unlock those tools with a simple option to the core subscription. It's only 15%. And this will be valid for all your projects, okay? Unlimited projects with this option. We already had unlimited users, so going to a much simpler way to purchase those unlocks. We also released Cintoo Connect 1.7 that you can install from this button at the top right of your web app. The main big stuff here is the export of crops. So for your information, we use Cintoo Connect to upload scans to the platform, but also to download scans and turn them back into a set of point cloud, okay? So until now, when you selected a crop, the only export capability you had was a unified RCP RCS, which is the Autodesk point cloud format. Now we added E57 as well. And also we made this Cintoo Connect much easier to install, faster, etc. And now we can also support high resolution panoramic images. And there is more to come. There is a 1.8 coming with the full support of RTC 360, big pictures as well, coming very soon. Another piece of information is that we have our new website live this week. Yeah! This has been a long run. Look at it. It's you simply go to cintoo.com. A lot of new information here, a lot of new stuff. If there is one section I would recommend is go to the demo section, and you can experience the technology in action by going to a few of those projects. So you just click on play the demo here, and that will take you to the shared viewer for this project. So please take a look at that. Very interesting new website with a focus on all digital twin industries. Last but not least, we have our new white paper coming out this week. Very happy about that. This is all about QAQC workflow in construction, towards the exact topic of this webinar. You will get this white paper as a PDF in a follow-up email after this webinar. Please take a look at that. You can send it to your colleagues as well. For older people, will have access to it after we have put it online on our website. That will take another few days. So, but you will get it as part of the registration to this webinar starting tomorrow. And that's it. So now it's time for questions and answers. There is a team of 4 ready to help you here. Thank you very much for your attention.